In Lesson 9, we're going to begin learning how to configure Windows. We'll learn about the PC settings and how to change them, the lock screen and the start screen, how to configure those, changing your password, setting up additional users so you can set up an account for the kids or a guest, notifications, search options, changing the date and time in your time zone, privacy settings, Windows Update, and lots more. Let's talk about customizing and configuring Windows. Windows is highly configurable. There are lots of different options to change. You can leave Windows just the way it is out of the box if you're happy with it, or you can customize a lot of the options. Now, we're not going to cover all the different options today. Literally, I could spend 2 hours going through all the different configurable options. But I'm going to show you some of the more common things you might want to change to make your Windows experience a little better. So let's bring up the Charms bar, this guy, and go into Settings. And right down here, click on the Change PC Settings option. That brings up this guy. The first option on the left over here is Personalize. You can change the lock screen. You can pick from any of these different picture patterns down here, or you can browse for a picture of your own. Remember, I showed you earlier how to save a picture off the web. So if you see a background or some scenery that you like, you can save that, browse to it, and then pull it in here. You can customize the look and feel of your start screen. You can pick any one of those background patterns or colors on the bottom there. Or you can change your account picture. Again, you can browse for a picture, or if your laptop has a camera built in, you can just click on the camera option and take a picture of your face and put that on as your account picture. The next option over here is Users. Now, we talked about this before a little bit. We switched over from a local to a Microsoft account. You can also come to this page to change your password. But you might also want to set up another user account for maybe the kids or for guests. Let's come down here and click on Add a User. Now, if you want to add a Microsoft account, you can sign them in here if they have an existing email address, or you can sign them up for a new email address, or you can sign in without a Microsoft account. That's how you make yourself a local account. Usually, if you just got someone who wants to get on and check their email or write a document in Word, you can just set up a local account. And here, this screen talks about the difference between Microsoft and local accounts, which we've already gone over before. So I'll just pick local account. A username, you could type in guest or kids. Let's make it kids or whatever else. The password, well, you can leave it without a password if you want. Just leave those blank and then hit next. All right, the following user will be able to sign this PC, kids. Is this a child's account? Turn on family safety to get reports of their PC use. Now, we'll talk about family safety in more detail in a future class, but this just keeps an eye on and logs their activity. All right, so I'll hit finish. Now, there's a kids account here. Now, how do the kids log on? Well, let's close this, and I'm going to sign out. Or you can click right here on kids and switch to their account. But let's say they just opened up your laptop. They just flipped open the lid. Okay, so they'll be sitting at the lock screen when it opens up. Click to get rid of the lock screen, and here you'll see kids and then your account. And if for some reason they're sitting here on the your account screen, just click the back arrow, and that'll bring you back to switch user. And you can log on as whichever one you want. All right, I'll log back on as myself. All right, let's go back into settings. Change PC settings. So we talked about users. Notifications. These are those little messages that pop up, and you can prevent different apps from popping up notifications. Sometimes you'll find that apps are annoying, and you don't necessarily want to see their little pop-up notices. So you can turn pop-up notifications on or off completely. You can show them on the lock screen. You might not want your mail application showing a pop-up message on your lock screen if you're getting sensitive information. So you can turn that off if you want to. All right, notification sounds if you don't want to be annoyed by those. And you can control which apps are allowed to pop up notifications. If you don't want to see notifications from games or music or video, you could turn those off, and those apps will no longer show pop-up notices. Search options. Show the apps that I search for most often at the top. When you search for information, you want to see the apps that you're using the most on the top of the search list. Do you want Windows to save your searches for future suggestions? You can delete your history right here if you want to. And these are the apps that you search through. So if you're never going to search through music, you can turn that off if you want. Or you're never going to search through games, turn that off. We'll talk more about sharing in a future class. This is where you can share information between apps. Like you can usually right-click on something or go to the Charms bar and share it to the Mail app or the People app or the SkyDrive app. We'll talk about this in a future class. The General tab has a bunch of random stuff. You can change the date and time. You can change your time zone. All right, I am actually in -5 Eastern. I never configured this when I set up the computer. Automatically adjust for daylight savings time, yes or no. Allow switching between apps. When I swipe in from the left edge, switch to my most recent app. Do you want autocorrect spelling words on? Highlight misspelled words? And there's some more different and advanced options down here like refreshing your PC, and we'll cover these in future classes. The big thing on General right now is just setting up the date and time. Privacy. Let apps use your location. You could turn off location sharing if you don't want that for all the apps. Let apps use my name and account picture. In other words, when you open up an app, can it have access to your name and your account picture? Okay, that's off by default. And help Windows Store by sending URLs for the web content that the apps use. Again, could be a privacy concern for you if you don't want the URLs, the web page addresses being shared with apps. Devices is just a list of all the different devices. Now, it'll find devices connected directly to your computer. It'll also find some devices on your network. For example, here's a network printer that Windows went out and found. So it'll poll your network to find different devices. Here's one of my media servers, for example. We'll cover devices in a future class. Your wireless options are in here. Turn this on to stop wireless communication, also called airplane mode on a phone or a tablet. That turns off any electromagnetic transmissions from your device. So when you're on a plane, you don't interfere with their electronics. All right, wireless devices on or off. The flight mode also includes things like Bluetooth or the cell radio if you have a phone, whereas this is just Wi-Fi. Ease of access lets you switch on things like high contrast, the narrator, notifications, how long they show up, the cursor thickness. Sync your settings. These are the things that you want to have synced with your Microsoft account. In other words, when you log on a different computer, do you want these settings to be pulled in? All right, sync settings on this PC, yes or no. And you can personalize the colors, the backgrounds, the lock screens, the desktop, your passwords for websites and networks and such. So go down this list if you want to change any of these things, your browser settings, your browser history and favorites. All right, do you want to sync these things with your Microsoft account? You might want to have your Microsoft account sync some things like your desktop and your passwords, but you might not want your browser favorites, for example. You might browse a different set of websites at the office than you do at home, and you don't want that information to sync. So you can turn that off. Home group has to deal with networking. We'll have a whole separate lesson on networking in the future. Windows Update has to do with Microsoft sending your computer automatic updates over your internet connection. Now, I have Windows Update turned off because, personally, I find it annoying to always have it running in the background. I usually turn it on like once a week or once a month just to see if there's any critical updates because they post patches and fixes. And again, generally, I've always been kind of an if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of guy. I don't usually constantly update my stuff, although if they fix a major security problem, then that's always good to have. But if Windows is running fine, I tend not to update it, because I've installed updates before that actually ended up breaking things. That was especially true with Microsoft Office. There was several times where Access or Excel were running great. Then I installed a patch or an update, and all of a sudden things weren't working. Come to find out they messed something up, and then they released another patch a week later, but that's why I don't generally leave Windows Update on. And sometimes with Windows Update, I find this incredibly annoying. Sometimes it'll download an update in the background, and then you'll get a message on your screen that says, Windows is going to reboot, whether you like it or not, in 20 minutes. So if I was planning on an afternoon of solid work, now I've got to sit there and wait for 15 minutes while my computer reboots and installs an update. So that's why I generally leave this off. Now if you click on Turn on Recommended Settings, it goes out automatically and it checks for updates. And now it says, after it finds some stuff, you're set to automatically install updates. We'll install 27 important updates automatically. They'll be installed during your PC's scheduled maintenance. Now I'll show you how to adjust this setting further in a few minutes when we get to the control panel. There's something else you can do to have Windows notify you of an update but not download it and automatically install it on you. So we'll talk more about that in a few minutes.